Hey, I'm Robert from Learn Audio Engineering. Welcome to Sound Strategies, the weekly show giving you fresh tips and tricks to help you create better mixes using the tools you probably already own. In this video, I'm going to talk about panning, what it is, why you should pan, and how to do it effectively. So let's start at the beginning. What is panning? Well, panning is a technique that allows the engineer to move a sound across the two speakers that make up our stereo field. Now, before the development of stereo, everything was mixed together through a single speaker, which was known as mono. As the desire for a more realistic imaging grew, so did the number of speakers from 1 to 2 to 4, and then they decided, the biggest difference happens when we switch from one speaker to two, and we have 2 ears, and this can accurately reproduce what we hear, so yeah, let's just stick with 2. And then stereo was born, and with it, panning. Now, panning allowed engineers to spread instruments across this newly developed stereo field, and in the beginning there were only 3 positions: the left speaker, the right speaker, or the center position, which is an equal combination of both speakers. So L, C, R. Panning is a fast and effective way to move information across the left and right, which gave a new approach to separating instruments that had similar frequency content. You could just separate them. However, depending on the DAW you use and how it's set up, it is possible to run into some complications that can potentially destroy your mix, possibly without you even noticing. Let me explain. Okay, so I'm going to share what I've got going on here. I've got 2 mono synth tones that I've hard panned. I've got a low sound that I've panned to the left. I've got a high sound that I've panned to the right. Now, I've ran those both through a bus, and I've recorded them onto an audio track with that bus as the input. So as you can see, we've got our low sound on the right, we've got another sound on the left. And the reason that we're doing this is I'm going to demonstrate to you what the Logic pan knob actually does. So when we play this and it's in centered position, you're going to hear 2 notes. So you can hear the high sound, you can hear the low sound, but listen to what happens when we start to move the pan knob around. And the other way. Okay, so what's happening there? Logic is not moving around any of the information. Instead, what it's doing is it's balancing the level of the left and right speakers. So when I have my pan position all the way to the right here, what I'm saying is I want the right speaker, I don't want the left speaker. But if I have information that's only in that left speaker, I'm losing that. And you don't want that. So here's what we're going to do instead. We're not going to use this for any stereo information. It's fine for mono, but it doesn't work for stereo. For stereo, we need a different tool. We need to use the directional mixer, which you can find under the imaging right there in stereo. Now, the directional mixer actually lets you pan stuff and move information from the right speaker to the left speaker and vice versa. So with the spread at 1, we're just going to move the direction to 90, which is all the way to the right. And now you can hear both sounds have moved to the right speaker. And we can also hear that because they're stacked on top of each other, we're getting a louder output. So you can hear that side gets louder as we boost it because it's getting more information. With the balance knob, there's nothing actually moving, so that side is going to stay the same. Now there's one more thing that I want to make sure that you're aware of about panning in your DAW, and that is its pan law. So if you go into recording settings, and then under audio, you get this window here, and it has your sample rate, the surround format, and then the pan law. And this can have an effect on the balance of your mix when you start to use panning. So as I have it set right now as 0 dB, what's going to happen is our VU meter here on each side is going to read 0. Awesome, so I've got it balanced for that. Now watch what happens if I change the pan law to -3 dB. Now it's peaking at 3, see that? Right there. So what's happening there? Well, if we have something panned dead center, it's being reproduced by 2 speakers. So it's essentially got a doubling of power. It's going to be 3 dB louder. So to compensate for this, we can use this pan law and select -3 dB, and this is going to dip whatever's in the center by 3 dB. And the reason that you want this is so that that instrument sounds the same volume no matter where it is in its pan position. So because I'm using just this one mono sound, I can absolutely use this balancer. Now I'm going to move that around. You're going to hear that wherever I move it, it's going to be the same volume. So when we have this 3 dB selected, it's going to be minus 3 dB in the center because it's being reproduced twice, and then it's going to go up to 0 when it's panned all the way into the left or the right speaker. Watch this. So anything in the center position is going to be lowered by 3 dB to compensate for that doubling of power between both of the speakers. Now there's another setting, minus 3 dB compensated, and as far as I can tell, this is the same concept, but it adds 3 dB when a sound is panned. So it's 0 in the middle and plus 3 dB when it's panned to the sides. Let's check it out. So I like to set the pan law to minus 3 dB. That's what works best for me, and that's what's going to give you even balance at any panning position in your mix. So next, let's talk about some ways to approach panning the instruments within your mix. So in this example, I'll share an approach to panning a drum kit that comes from producer engineer Andy Johns. He likes to make the drums sound as if you're at a really good rehearsal and you're standing about 10 feet back from the kit. So from that perspective, the drums are coming from one place in the mix. So if you bring the drums in from the sides and the drum effects, any reverb you're using, bring it all in about 3/4. Room mics, toms, hi-hat, everything pretty much up the middle, and that's going to leave space on the sides for the rest of your instruments. And I've also used the S1 imager to narrow the stereo image so that everything's coming more or less up the center. Let's have a listen to how this leaves space on the sides. When I begin to widen the drum overheads, we lose the separation between the instruments. The drums begin to sit over top of the guitars and mask their clarity. Wide stereo drums sound pretty cool and hi-fi on their own, but it's not really an effect that I missed in the mix, and the added space on the sides is a great bonus. Okay, so we're going to take a look at the guitars in this track and how we can balance them. So we have two main guitars. There's the one that I'm playing and there's the one that Andrew's playing. And a common thing to do, this is definitely something that Andrew Johns would have done, is hard pan the two guitars. So we're going to move one to the left and one to the right. And if we're thinking LCR, only 3 directions, we would pan them absolutely in opposite directions. So now when I play this, we're going to have the two main guitar parts come on either side of us. I'm just going to mute the slide guitar and the acoustic guitar. We're going to bring those in.
Looking back is never right. Don't I know we might not get this right? But it hurts. Yeah.
Okay, so it's really cool. We have this one on the right, more consistent, and we've got the one on the left that in the verse isn't doing much, and then it picks up. And it gets a bit more engaging. So having those separated, having one more steady and a little bit more space on the other is going to create a lot of differences between the left and right and create a lot of like rhythmic interest. It's going to be really cool. So then what I might do is I'm going to experiment with the 12-string guitar and see where that wants to go. I might leave it up the center. I might put it to the left to fill in some of that space when the other guitar isn't playing.
Every time you walk away, I see you turn your back. Oh, end up in
it kind of gets lost on the right side. I think I'm just going to leave that in the center. So you've got a guitar on the left, we've got a guitar on the right, and then we have a guitar right dead center. Sounds pretty good. And then the last, we have two different amp takes. This was tracked through a Fender and a Supro. So we got two different takes of that. And what I'm going to do is just put those a little bit to the side. That's a lead part. So I don't want that to interfere with the melody. We want the vocal here. And then when any lead part comes in, it's just going to come in off to the side. So let's listen to how that sounds.
Looking back is never right. Don't I know we might not get this right? Would it hurt every time you walk away?
Awesome. So this is a really great technique for separating instruments in the mix very easily, and it sounds great in stereo. So if you know that your audience is going to be wearing earbuds or listening on headphones, this is fantastic. One thing that I would encourage you to be aware of is how your mix sounds in mono. So I've got the S1 imager here, and I've got it just summed so that we're listening to the mono mix. So let's see if the guitars change.
I see you turn your back. Oh,
So they sound really big in stereo, but when we sum it to mono, I can still hear the acoustic guitar just fine, but the guitars on the sides don't come through as much. And there's something that we can do about that. This is something that Michael Stavro talks about in his book, Mixing with Your Mind. This is a really great book. I definitely recommend it. I'm going to read two sentences from his section called Psychoacoustic Mid-Left. As you know, any sound panned to the center will become louder in mono, while those panned hard left or right will become quieter when the stereo mix is collapsed to mono. It therefore conveniently stands to reason that a sound positioned exactly mid-left or mid-right will not suffer from mono to stereo translation problems. So he talks about a method of finding this acoustic middle left or middle right that's supposed to have the stereo width that you're looking for, but it's also going to keep that mono compatibility. So I've added the Shep 73 to the master output, and the reason I've used that plugin is because it has a stereo VU meter, and what Michael Stavros says to do is to solo the guitar, or the thing you want to pan, and we're going to adjust the pan position until it reads 0 dB in the side that you want to pan it, and -7 on the opposite side. So that's about it. I had to boost the input. The guitar is really not that loud. But yeah, I found that -31 was the right place for it. I'm going to do that on the other side. +31. So let's unsolo that and listen to what that sounds like.
Looking back is never right. Don't I know we might not get this right? Would it hurt?
Okay, cool. Now let's compare that with the hard panning when they're both summed to mono.
Oh, since the last time that we talked. Whoa, since the last time that we talked. It hasn't got any
So it is a very subtle difference. I do hear the halfway pan position, preserving a little bit more of the low mids of the guitar, helping to maintain a little bit of that body. So definitely an interesting comparison and something to keep in mind for your next mix. Panning is a very powerful tool that can drastically alter the width, texture, and amount of rhythmic symmetry in a mix. So it's worth setting a timer for about 20 minutes and experiment with the pan positions. Listen to how different instruments blend together or separate completely. So I hope you learned something from this video. Leave a like if you did, and remember to subscribe if you haven't already for new videos each week. Thanks for watching this video, and while you're here, you might as well check out another video, like this one. It's another lesson from Michael Stavro about compression. Pretty cool. And that one's pretty popular too, by Michael Brower. And as for me, I'm just gonna pan my way over to the right. Thanks for watching.